Hey guys, welcome back. So today's video is going to be kind of long and really rambly, so just giving you a heads up on that. I have been trying to clean out my shop space because I just am running out of room in there, and I've gathered up all of these 3D printed parts that I've just been hanging on to for no apparent reason. Some of them I want to keep, some of them I'm going to throw away, some of them I'm probably going to donate to people who I think could use them for something else. But I figured it might be kind of fun to go through a bunch of prints and see just what kind of stuff I have here. I have as one box, two boxes, a giant bag full of stuff, some other random parts kicking around here, and some other items. And I'm just going to dump them on the table and start going through them as random as the stuff is and talk about what they are and why they're in these bags instead of using them. We might have to listen to some helicopters fly over from time to time because I live in the valley and there are a lot of helicopters. So let's get started, shall we? If I get to a point and there's something you have a specific question on, let me know. And if I hit, I don't know, general things that I'm going to talk about a little more than others, after the fact, I will try to notate the times on where those things are and put them in the description. It probably is not going to be right when I post this video. It might be like a week later. So here we go. Dump this stuff out on the table. And we'll do this other one too. There's some stuff here that's like sort of mixed media, but maybe this is a bad idea. So much stuff. I'll put the boxes over here too because as I decided to keep things, I'm dropping stuff already on the ground. I don't even know where it went. As I decided to keep things, I'll try to separate them out. More stuff. A whole other box over here. There we go. So now maybe you can see why this might take a little bit. There's probably even more stuff in the shop that I haven't got to yet, but let's start with this. This is the blaster for that life-size Boba Fett Sean Fields thing that I printed. And this actually came out really good, and you can hear it make some noise and sounds a little funky. It is basically, it's got a metal rod on the inside that I glued in here because I printed this in two pieces. I split it in the middle and printed front and back with as little support as possible. And I put a rod inside when I glued it shut, and I cut a hole in the back with that saw that I posted in my last video. I used that to cut this hole, and I'm going to fill this with expanding foam so that it'll be solidified, the rod won't shake around, and it'll be nice and sturdy. But yeah, so I'll keep this one. I have a whole bunch, and even more, and even more, and more. These are all different versions of Droid Arms. Like this is a 3PO arm. This one's actually probably still good. They're all different versions where I would print it and then I would see there was some little aspect I wanted to adjust and I would print it again. So I have even more. There are so many of these. Lots and lots of Droid Arms. So I'll get these out of the way because it's sort of boring. This one was a really early one done on my first printer, and I got really bad layer adhesion, so it's just super weak. And I figured that at some point I would take these and turn them into like a display thing, maybe make some like Droid junkyard parts. So here's an RA7 arm, and I think I'm going to donate a lot of these to the Scum and Villainy Cantina over in Hollywood, and let my friend JC deal with that. Oh my god, there was a bag within a bag over here. Oh my god, here we go. So I'm probably going to donate some of these arm pieces that I'll never use to my friend JC. I actually think this set is a good upper set, so I'll keep those. Total disaster one. This one was like okay, but then it just kicked around outside. Another one, and another one. So you can see I have a problem. Oh yeah, another one, another forearm piece, another one. So I've got an entire box here. Oh, another one here, another Droid Arm. This one's actually okay too. It had some filler. And some of them, what happened is they needed so much cleanup because of the print settings I used were bad. So I ended up just printing them again. Another arm piece. Another arm piece. I ended up printing them again with better settings, and then I just abandoned the first ones, even though I could probably clean them up and use them. More arm pieces. Another arm piece. These are all just 3PO arm pieces. Another one. I have a lot of them. Now this is something that's kind of interesting. So we're talking about Droid Arms. So the droid that I did for Jedi Temple Challenge is called 83. This was one of the original bicep pieces. And I did something, I had a tolerance in here that was wrong. Now on the final version, this piece is like a bearing. So this is the upper arm. This actually goes on here. And this got glued down and bolted in place on the finals, but this would be the upper arm here like this, and I just moved it. But you can see this rotates within the arm. It's pretty cool. Probably keep this just for the sake. Later I might do a thing. This is another part of the Jedi Temple Challenge droid. This is the shoulder assembly. This is one of them. Here's another one. These are all slightly different. Let's see. Now, when I did this shoulder assembly, this would be, you know, this goes on the arm like this, and that other part of the arm goes in here. I needed a way for this to stay on my torso, so I figured out this rig using an old coffee canister that I could basically attach this here, and that this size happened to fit into the shoulder ring like this. So now, when I'm wearing this, I would have a piece that I wore on my chest, kind of like a set of suspenders or something, and then the arm could go here. So now the shoulder would rotate and look really cool, but I could put it on separately from the rest of the costume. It was pretty neat the way the costume goes together. Maybe if you're interested in the future, I can do a video on how that costume goes together. But underneath there's like a thing that holds the shoulders on basically. Now, I didn't want to use these coffee containers. This was sort of like a test thing. So I 3D modeled a part that was the same size as the coffee container with a bigger flange on it so it wouldn't fall off. And I kind of had this thing worked out where these pieces would go together. And it worked okay, but this thing was not really fitted all that well. And in the process, I realized I have a 3D scan of myself. So I took the scan and extruded basically the same kind of part here, like this, but it's made to fit on me. Might be the wrong shoulder here. It's made to fit on me perfectly, and it contours to my form, but it still has the same little lip on the edge, and then the shoulder piece goes into the shoulder piece like this. Basically, you have to squeeze it down to install it. And then when it pops back open, it can't fall out. And when you're wearing it, it can't collapse enough for the shoulder to fall off, which is, I thought, was a really kind of a cool idea. Now, if I had to design this again and do an update, I would probably do a bearing system like I did in the arms. But right now, that was the trick. That's how that worked. The reason I have so many different shoulders is because the actual tolerances for the arms had to be really specific. And I had to get them narrow enough that that bicep piece would fit into the arm here, but it had to be tall enough here so that I could lift my arm up and down while I was in the suit. So I had multiple versions while I kind of worked out the details. But that's what this stuff is. Part of the 83 droid. This is also one of my first test neck pieces. That's probably going to break when I go to put it on. Yep, I broke it. This is a different plastic. I made them thinner, and it fits right on my neck, really nice. But you can see it's this one is a little bit thick and a little bit harder plastic. I printed the final one in PETG, which is a little more flexible. This is PLA, and the final ones were a little bit longer, so it came down further because this one worked really well. But if I lifted my head, I would get a gap right here between the costume and the neck, and I did not like that. So I extended it So this is one of the early versions of the neck for the 83 droid. Droid shoulder, an RA7 shoulder. Didn't want to use that. 3PO, back of the head. This is one of the first versions I did off of the Dawn Post scans, and I was trying to make it work with a casting of I have a really close to original screen used casting, like the lineage is like 2 generations away, so it's very, very accurate. And I wanted to make sure it fit. So this is actually one of my castings with a different 3D printed head. And these are slight adjustments. I need to do one more round. This one's pretty close. Not quite there, but real close. So I'll be doing those sometime in the future. I need to make a new helmet soon, so I'll probably get to that sooner rather than later. 3PO hand. This is TPU rubber. Pretty awesome. It's wearable. Let's see if I can get my hand in here. So it's a wearable rubber hand. It's a little bit flexible, kind of like the Empire Strikes Back hands in Return of the Jedi. So it's pretty cool, but I never made the left hand. I just made the one. I have a lot of stuff here, guys. I'm sorry. Random print fail for something, but Boba Fett pieces. Lots of shoulder ring parts for the different droids, different versions of my shoulder ring designs for the 3PO parts. Even more. This one is actually kind of my backup for my existing suit. Now I like the ones that rotate, but in a pinch, if I need it, I can do the old school Velcro version, which means the shoulder sort of flops around, which I don't like, but in a pinch this will work. So I actually keep these as backup in with my 3PO kit. But I have the rotating versions, multiple different types. Let's see what else I got here. Another Protocol Droid arm piece. Some fishing line that is somehow in here. That's always good. So now I can't put these away because I have fishing line stuff in here, which is too strong for me to break. There we go. There's the end of it. All right. Arm pieces. I don't know where the end of this line goes. There a screw or something? No, that's it. That's all there is. Sorry guys, this is going to just be straight through live action here, so I'm going to try not to edit this at all. Okay, so this is an interesting one. So this goofy face, this is another piece. These click together like, if I remember how to do this, like this. And they meet together. This was going to be multiple pieces. I made the helmets for the College Humor show called Troopers, and they had a version called Troopers Rise of the Budget that they put on some streaming platform, and they needed this character called Dreadlord, and it was a really, really goofy concept art that they were very adamant it looked like the concept art. So I'm going to show you what the real helmet's supposed to look like, because I have one here. I brought it out because I knew this was going to be in the bag, and I figured I'd show you. So this is what the helmets look like on the College Humor show. You could, if you look up College Humor, Troopers Rise of the Budget, you can find the trailer for it, and you can see this character. Initially I was going to 3D print 2 of these helmets. So I printed one, but the cleanup time took so long because at the time I was using a printer that just was sort of subpar, so it took a lot of cleanup. So by the time I finished, I figured it would be actually faster to mold and cast the helmets, because they needed 2. They needed one and a backup, which is pretty typical on most things when they're filming something with any kind of budget. They want to have a backup just in case. So this is the actual 3D print. You can see it's all printed in a bunch of pieces and put together. And after the thing was done, I painted it to look like the one that's on the show. But I ended up doing a mold and cast and did resin versions. Just gave them 2 of them, and I painted them just like that one. And I also did the trooper helmets. They're also really silly looking. Again, they were real specific that they wanted it to look like their illustrations, and I gave them these really cool helmets that were like stylized and nice, and they're like, no, we want it to look like this. One day I'll do a video on that and show the actual concept art, because it looks like a 6-year-old did it. It's ridiculous. I got this thing. This is a costume part for the character Misty Brown. Am I saying this right? Misty Knight. Gee, I said Misty Brown. It's like my wife's old boss. Misty Knight from the show Luke Cage. She has this robot arm thing. It's really cool. And this is a replacement part because Prop Store had an arm that they needed to sell. I built a whole stand for it. I got some parts here actually too for the stand. So if you look up Misty Knight arm Prop Store, you can find the actual display stand. It's like on a PVC stand. It's all cool looking. Here's another piece to the same thing. Here's another one of the pieces. This one had a misprint, so you can see I had a layer shift, so this was garbage. This was an earlier version, which used to actually be on their display, but it was we found out that there was another piece of the arm that was missing when we first built this display. When I added it back, I needed to modify the stand. But they had a stunt version of the arm also that was missing this part. I thought it was missing this part too, but it wasn't. And so we scanned the real one that was existing, and I did a lot of ZBrush cleanup and printed a replacement part for the stunt arm, because the whole stunt arm is complete minus this piece. And it's got my notes on here because this one was like a preliminary one, and there was some stuff that was not quite right. Some of these little holes were much smaller on the real print, or I'm sorry, on the real part. But on the actual digital scan, it was very hard to distinguish the actual scale of the holes and so forth. So yeah, this is a 3D scan cleaned up piece for replacement. I don't think I need to keep this anymore. It's kind of cool, but I don't know. This is part of my spray silver thing for doing chroming, and I posted the files for these. Here's the top of it. I posted the files for these on Thingiverse, and basically this takes 2 water bottles and you can fill them with the silvering chemicals, and it'll spray both the chemicals at the same time. So it's good for chroming small items. This was the preliminary version. I made a bunch of adjustments. I printed this one. It kind of worked, but it needed fixes. So this is the preliminary thing. I'm gonna give that to somebody for, I don't know, they might be able to make something out of it. These are also parts for the College Humor Troopers. They had these little eye pieces that went on the costume like this on one side. So these are a whole bunch of extras of those. They're kind of junk, but I think someone could make something out of them. So I'm gonna give this to my friend JC. Got another 3PO hand here with it. Got some weak print layers. No good. 3PO foot made out of TPU, so you can actually wear this. One day I'll get around to printing the other one. This is actually probably usable, so I'll set that to the side. Something I made for a display. I can't remember what this is. Some kind of spacer for something I'll probably never use again. This is, what the hell is this thing for? I don't remember. Something I made, and I think this is a misprint. It stopped working. Oh, you know what this is for? This is for the containers, the canisters in the cantina, August Cantina at Galaxy's Edge. This is one of the prints that I started, and it was supposed to go higher, but my printer malfunctioned and I only got this far, so not usable. Let's see. This is one of the brake mounts I made for one of my bicycles. I got a video on that here somewhere. So on my dual slalom bike, it's like my jump bike, I swapped out the brakes to something newer, and the mounts were no longer compatible, and the adapter that they sold did not fit my bike properly. It just didn't have enough room, so I had to make something. I designed a part in Fusion 360, and I printed one to be sure that it would fit. I was going to have this machined somewhere out of aluminum, but on my testing with the 3D printed part, it actually worked. So I've been riding around on that bike with a 3D printed brake mount for a long time. Now in the last 8 months I haven't ridden it because of my knee, but before that I was riding my bike a lot, and I was just using a 3D printed brake mount, and it has been working this whole time. So that is cool, but I don't need this one anymore, so it's going in the trash. Let's see here. We've got 3PO hands, like I said, a lot of random droid parts. Now these hands, this one didn't come out right, kind of printed poorly at the top, but I figure it could be a display thing. Do I have another one around here? I feel like no. Here's another one. So this is what these the hand part looked like. This isn't entirely screen accurate, but it fits really well and it wears really nice. I actually brought out the one that I wear with my 3PO costume, which is this same part. Now this one's been pretty abused, so you can see it has a glove underneath, and it's all gold. It's just the same deal. I didn't even do a good finish on this when I did it, but when you see it in pictures, it looks gold and nice, and it totally works, and these fit really, really great. So I kind of like these even more than the screen used ones. It's one of the parts on my costume that I've kind of opted for my own personal version rather than a screen used version. Let's see. I have two tiny little 3PO hands that I did as test prints. They came out really good. I kind of like them. They're cute. Set those aside. This is a neck piece to EV99, and it came out really good, but I realized that the rotation of where these details are versus these details was slightly off. So I needed to go in there and change a section by like 10 degrees or something to correct it so that it'd be more accurate. So this version didn't get used, but it's a good print and it looks mechanical and like a droid part. So I'll probably paint this metal and, you know, use it as some kind of thing, give it to somebody doing a sci-fi production. And there's another part for this around here somewhere. I know that it's in here. Let's see. So this piece, this is another part that I think goes here. Yeah. So there's a couple of these print separately. Now, the reason I did them separate as opposed to print them onto this part is that they, I wanted to be able to print this without any support material. So by doing this as a separate piece, I could do that. And this has, I think, 3 or 4 of these that go right up to where the head meets the neck on that droid. So this is a kind of cool thing that I will keep. Let's see here. Got a bunch of random gun parts. This is a silverine spray gun. It looks pervy. There's a couple of different versions here. Basically the tubes, I know everybody's gonna make a comment. The tubes go into here like this, and these go down into your silverine chemicals, and you can use a air compressor air gun off of here, and it forces the air through and sprays your chemicals, and it almost works great. I gotta make some little adjustments, but I've done, I don't know, multiple versions of these things, and I've probably got one around here that's just a single, because I was trying to figure out the best way to get the spray. I don't know if you can see in here, but you know, the air comes through one part, and then the actual liquid comes through the other part, and it basically, you know, creates a, when the air comes out, it creates a vacuum and pulls out the liquid. And it works great, but when you stop spraying, the liquid would go back down the tube, so I need to put some kind of little stopper in there to kind of keep the fluid from going back down the tube, and I think that'll solve the problem. But these are pretty cool, and I'll put these on Thingiverse whenever they're done. Another way of spraying is silver chemicals, so those are kind of cool. I have a ton of little lightsaber parts here, different versions that were all not quite right from the Jedi Temple Challenge show. I did all of the lightsabers for the show. So if you've seen Jedi Temple Challenge, all the kids have to go find these lightsaber parts and assemble them, and they, you know, it's like Double Dare, and they have to go find the parts and assemble these things. I designed all the lightsabers, and I designed the challenge version and the one that is the one that lights up, which is based on the Savi sabers from Galaxy's Edge. You can get those saber kits and you put them together, and they use the cores for those sabers, and we did the custom lightsaber parts on top of it, and I made all of those. So here I have a whole bunch of these pieces that are just not quite right, or extras, or whatever. There's a ton of them. Stack them. I'll just lay them over here, and so you can see some of them just printed badly, like that one didn't print all the way. Another piece. Here's one of the little switches, the test versions that was an early version, and I changed how it works. This one was really hard to flip the switch on it, so it worked, but it was difficult to use, so I came up with a new version, way different. if you're interested in those, I can go into all kinds of detail on how to make Savi Saber cores. We've got a raised blaster here. Multiple parts of that are in this box kicking around, so I'll try to put those together. E11 Sterling submachine gun clips that I was making because I have 2 PVC Stormtrooper blasters I made a long time ago, E11s, and I fabricated these pieces out of like some plastic and some wood on the old ones. I was like, I could just print and replace them now with better ones. So those are getting saved. Put these hands away. Another thing I did for Jedi Temple Challenge was make some like little gauntlets. These are not the ones for the show. These are the example ones that they gave me, and the kids would wear them on their arms like this. These are actually from one of the shows at Disneyland, I think, and I need to probably return these. So they wanted something that looked like this, and I had to make a whole bunch of them. So I ended up 3D modeling each arm and printing a buck. Now this is full of Ultra Cal 30 to make it nice and heavy and solid, and I made them in different sizes so different kids could wear them. So this one, I see this one's a little longer, and they were all connected like this when I did vacuum forming, but they've since broken apart. These are pretty heavy, and they were vacuum formed. And here's the small version, and there had to be, I want to say 13 sets. Is that right? Yeah, 13 sets of each size for the kids, so that in the off chance that all the kids on stage or on set that day were all the same size, every kid could wear the same size gauntlets, and it was an undertaking. This one was the first one I did, and I realized I kind of messed it up. So it was super wide at the back, and it looked really funky. I printed the whole thing, and I looked at it, and I was like, this is terrible. So this one didn't work, and then I adjusted the profile. You can see on the back, these are what the final ones look like, and this is how big the first one was. Really, really stupid looking. So that can go in the trash. Here's more of them. I have a bunch of these. Another thing that I did like that for vacuum forming was this, which this one is basically a garbage version that'll never get used. So I'm gonna throw that away. This is the final version, and this is for the show The Masked Dancer, and these are the backup dancer masks. So this is one of the vacuum form pieces that was made off of that buck. I did the sculpt in ZBrush. This is actually my face here that I used to make the internal face, and then I made it symmetrical and feminized it a little bit more, and then I did all this sculpt in ZBrush and printed it. Same thing, it's full of Ultra Cal 30, but they needed all these little holes. I don't know if you can see those little red dots. Those holes had to be drilled through. My bit was only about this long, so I actually had to chisel out the back and make sure that the holes went through so that they could get good suction, because the plastic that they're using is pretty thick. If they were using a thinner plastic, I wouldn't have had to do so many, but this plastic is kind of like what they make Stormtrooper armor out of. It's ABS, really sturdy stuff. And so yeah, if you want to do a vacuum form buck, 3D printed vacuum form buck, it'll work. This one, the actual top layers of paint started to get chipped because they were just running them so fast, but they all still came out great. They all looked really good when they were done, so that is cool. Oh, set that to the side. Another thing got here, a little wall display piece that was made to hang one of those IG88 lamp. It was going to be a lamp with one of those, the IG88 jet engine parts that I have. You've probably seen them in other videos, but this was an early version. The final version looked exactly the same on the front, but this one's just plywood in the back, and the final version was really, really nice, and it all bolts together. It's very much better design. So this one got set aside. I might actually make one for myself out of that. Another Droid Arm piece. The tiny test print of the Bantha magnet for Regal Robot. Actually, that lamp too that I made was another thing for Regal Robot, but this is the Bantha magnet that I did for Regal Robot, a really low res print just so I could check it for size, and that's going in there. Another part of a different blaster. So I have DL44 which is the Han Solo blaster. I've got a bunch of, it's like a pretty good print. I did this a long time ago on my first printer. It came out pretty good. C-3PO neck piece goes around here. This is my first draft, and I think it was just a hair small, and I did not like that, so I made it a little bigger. And I didn't make it bigger and cheap for scale. I did it because it was actually not correct. So my new one is correct on my suit. So these are kind of junk. I might save these and give them to my friend. Blaster parts for Shore Trooper blaster that I started, that I never finished, to over here. RA7 droid parts. These are actually printed through Shapeways. I printed these before I had my own printer, and this was the card that I molded them on. So I did the mold vertically like this so that they wouldn't get bubbles trapped behind them. And yeah, that's how I did my RA7 Wearables on the first batch. This is an extra piece from when I made the display stand for the actual screen used 2001 Space Odyssey hangar model, which used to be part of the big space station that you see at the beginning of the movie. It's on the poster, and that space station got destroyed. It was out in the field, got all wrecked, but somebody saved the actual end with the hangar, and this is one of the pieces that I made to mount that. And somewhere on my YouTube I have a video that is unlisted that shows it, and I may put the link to that below because it's really cool. And pictures of it have been online now, so I never post anything about those kind of things, but now there are photos of it on the internet, so I could share the video. I don't think it'll feel too bad. Here's a random 3D printed part of a Glock for some reason, but this is one of the pieces that I made for that space station print. For I don't know what, if it didn't fit, I can't remember why I still have this one, but garbage. A probe from an R2-D2, another one that didn't print right, throw that out. Another piece of one of those 3PO hands. This is actually one of the hands that I wear, and I chopped this piece off because I did not need it. This was the thing that we did for Magic Wheelchair. I have a video on making a mold, so I printed this with the walls because this is the only part that you really need. So I print it with the walls, and then you fill this with silicone, you pull it out, and then you can recreate that part that's on the inside. This came out really good, and it's a cool thing, but I have a mold for it, so I don't need that anymore. Another R2 part that didn't print. I was having all kinds of issues printing that thing for some reason. This is one of the tabs that I made for the Boba Fett, the full-scale Boba Fett. Sean Fields supplied these with the files, but I have no idea where I put them, so I remodeled some and made my own. But my first batch were slightly too short, so the connection was very tight. So I made new ones. So that's a goner. Let's see here. Another piece to this gun goes on there somewhere. Some kind of droid part. It's an R2-D2 piece. Oh no, here's the piece for the gun. Look at that. This is the one that actually goes to it. I knew I painted it. So this is the extra one that was bad. So garbage. Extra back. Came out real bad. This is on one of my first, on my old printer. So the print was terrible. And I never go over this stuff because I get terrible prints all the time. Kylo Ren lightsaber, also really gnarly print. Looks okay in camera, but there's just horrible print lines on this where the cleanup time would be bad. Another one of those pegs that I don't need. A camera mount that I custom made to fit into one of my actual tripods. I have I can't remember what the brand, a Vista tripod or something, and the actual quick release, I just made a phone mount. This actually still works. I'm gonna keep this aside here. A mouth, I'm not gonna put this in my mouth, but you hold it in your mouth and you can hook a GoPro on here. And this thing works really great. I got this off Thingiverse at some point. I might do a slight design change to it so it fits a little better. Maybe it has like a TPU insert so it doesn't like crunch down, because it's hard when you hang onto it with your teeth. It's a pretty hard plastic, but this thing works really great, so that's a cool thing. Another one of the handles to raise the blaster. Some 3D printed 3PO Greeblies. You can see they're clear and they're all broken up. I use these to make the molds. When I did the C-3PO for Adam Savage, I cast the pistons in resin, and the resin had metal inserts inside, so they're really, really sturdy. It had a metal rod, metal pipe inside the resin casting, and the resin was just to make the actual shape match the screen use shape. When I did these, I printed these on the Form 2, and they had a little fin on the side with keys in it. So I basically just poured the silicone right over them, and you could just peel it off, and I have the mold. I didn't have to clay them up or anything, and they cast really, really nice. But this one, you can see it's broken. This resin is really brittle, so it's pretty useless, but it worked great for making a mold. Same resin. This is actually a piece to the Millennium Falcon for Regal robot that they used on the asteroid chase table. So they have a coffee table with the Millennium Falcon flying through it, and this is part of the Millennium Falcon model. Here's another piece too, also done on the Form 2. And at the time, there weren't like Peoply phenoms, so you had to print stuff at a much smaller size. Another piece of one of those guns that didn't come out well. Another piece of the Falcon. It's all warped because I left it in the sun. Another 3PO hand that I printed with like 3 different materials because I was running out as I was printing. That piece is actually good. Another, I have a bunch of these. The Droid parts, same as this other one here. I don't know why I printed so many of those. I think I was trying to get something right. Kind of sight thing for one of the like the First Order Stormtrooper guns, but the material is too stuck in there. Couldn't get it out, the support material. Arm slide for 3PO arm. These random things I did for I did this spoof thing for one of these, an NBA commercial, and they were I think, who was it? Brad Williams. He's like a little person, and they did a short film, like a short commercial kind of thing, where he had these rocket boots, and he was competing at basketball with his tall friend, and he had these rocket boots. So I made the rocket boots out of a pair of old ski boots that I got at some like sports store, and these were 3D printed to kind of go on the outside of the boot to dress it up some, and I painted them silver so they kind of look like, you know, like part of a rocket engine. And I ended up printing these out of TPU so they were flexible because he had to walk around in them. And so this is one of the test ones. You can see it kind of, it bends. It's squishy and basically the same part, and also could conform to the shoe just a little bit easier. Those look cool. I might save them for something else. Another lightsaber part, Jedi Temple Challenge. Another one of those camera frame things, wrong size. Let's see here. 3PO little disc here that goes in the back of the head. I'm gonna keep that. That one actually came out really good. Let's see. Hand parts. So I made these mannequin hands that I'll show sometime in another video because I got some that came out really good. These are a bunch of the finger segments and a thumb, and basically you can put the hand on a mannequin and it'll fit right on a regular mannequin arm, but you can pose it so all the fingers are posable, and then the hand, you can do this, like this whole chunk here can move, and pose the thumb, which means you can collapse it down and put a glove on it and then pose it back into a good position with a glove, which is, if you've ever tried to put a glove on a mannequin, it's very tricky. So I have these somewhere. Stabbed the hell out of myself one time trying to assemble one. It bled everywhere. That's great. I got a tip to some kind of gun. Another one of these parts. This is actually a casting of one that I did because I printed these on my resin printer. They came out really good. This is the very first 3D print I ever had in my hand, ever. And this was, it's really, really thin and flimsy, but this was printed on, I can't remember what kind of printer, but it's an FDM print. This is done back in 2011, maybe, when I still lived in Florida. And someone asked for the file, and we tried to print it on this printer, but I had modeled it for Shapeways, and I made it extremely thin, so it printed really flimsy, but it actually still printed pretty damn good. I still have this thing because I thought it was kind of neat. Another 3PO piston. Some bolts that I made, some elbow bolts that are threaded. You can see this. And they work. There's a T-nut and a bolt, and these were never intended to be used on the parts, but these are for, I think, the RA7 arm. And I basically downloaded the hardware, the actual T-nut and the bolt from McMaster Car, because you can get the files for free if you have Fusion 360. You can go import files from McMaster Car. So I got these and then I printed them, and they totally work. You can see the threading works. I can put the parts together, and they work surprisingly well. I can't vouch for the strength of the parts because they are 3D printed, but you know, if you need a stand-in piece, a little hardware, you can totally print one. This weird thing, this goes on the bottom like this. This went on the top of these things like so, and this piece went on the inside, and I would rivet them together like that, so the piece would have a big plate on the inside and this would be on the outside. And there were male and female versions of these masks, and all the female versions had this little thing on the top. So instead of making the whole thing and vacuum forming it, I just printed the ones that they needed for the female masks. So that was one of the extras. RA7 knee part that is terrible. Throw that away. This is the neck for the 8D8 droid that was modeled by Dave Moog. This actually came out really well. I just haven't installed it yet. Another part to raise blaster. See, I'm finding these pieces. Now, I'll get that together. This is a topper to one of the Cantina canisters. This one, I can't remember why I have this out here. It might be a little too big. I've got 10 versions of that. Let's see here. Scope for the Han blaster. Here's the back of it right here, which is what I do with it. It's over here. I got to find all the pieces. This is a really cool model. So, oops, so that would go like that on the side. I'll put that together one day. Plunger pieces, more Jedi Temple Challenge saber parts. More Jedi Temple Challenge saber parts. These are the parts that went into the back end of the saber. This is a greeble that was made for this guy. Actually, another greeble here. You can see this looks like an impeller part. It went to this, which is the CZ3. This is the one. Stuff on it. This is the one we did for Regal Robot. This was a test print of the head. So we printed this on. I printed this on the CR10 S5. The real ones were, printed on a much better printer, and these little greebles go on the sides here. Now this greeble, listen to that horn. That's great. So why do people have to do this stuff? This is my neighborhood. So this one has 3 prongs on it, and the side over here has 4. And we discovered that this was working off of a scan from the actual costume from the film. The side with 3, a piece had broken off, but in the scan you can't tell. It's just smooth, and there's no way to tell that something broken off. But when we went to the archives to actually look at the real one, you could see that it actually had the 4th one, so we ended up using this. And you can see this rotates. On the final version, we made these plugs here, and I made one that was square so that this could go in properly into the correct position every time. So when you're doing the, like assembly line style, it could be put together properly. And this is the piece that goes on the back. And it's the same thing, it's keyed, so the back has kind of a teardrop shape with a little sharp point on one side. It drops in here, it fits perfectly. And this is another part where there's a little split there. That's on the screen use one, but when we got the archives, we realized that the part had been broken. So on the scan, you see a little weird line, but it turns out it was cracked at some point. So the final version is fixed and corrected, and it looks way cooler. And speaking of Regal Robot and 3D prints, this is one of the coolest ones that's here. This is definitely not getting thrown out. This is a very early version of the Regal Robot Rancor, which I literally must have just broken the finger off of like a minute ago, because it was on here just like 10 minutes ago when I moved it. So I don't know what I did. It's probably on the ground around here somewhere. I don't know what did I do with it. Anyway, there's a finger missing right now, but it's just a 3D print I did on the CR10 S5. This is a very early version before we worked out some of the adjustments that needed to be made. This was the basic pose that we decided to go with, but then we tweaked it since this version. And because Regal Robot is based in New York and I'm here in California, we each printed one of these. Oh my god, that horn. We each printed one of these so that we could assess what needed to be changed. And before I painted this, it was just covered with notes written in Sharpie, so that it was covered with notes written in Sharpie, so that I had Tom's notes and my own notes, and we exchanged things the whole time. And now I'm like, where the hell is the other finger to this thing? It was sitting down here before, and it was on there earlier, 100%. So I got to look for it. Anyway, RA7 neck piece. Another part for the Jedi Temple Challenge saber. This is such a random little piece, but on the Savi sabers from Galaxy's Edge, you build them, you have to put in this little crystal. And on the show, on Jedi Temple Challenge, the kids had to assemble this, and they had to open the front, which had that little switch that looked like this. Just needed to open up, and they had to put in the crystal. Problem is, at the Savi's place at Galaxy's Edge, the way you put the crystal in, you can put both your fingers around it and pop it into place, but it's really tricky to put that stupid thing in. So I made this little part that would hold the springs out just enough to make it easy to push the crystal in, but the crystal couldn't fall all the way through because it was really easy to push it past the point where it needed to go. So it stopped it in the correct place, and it made it easy to push in. And this is sort of just hidden inside, so when this opened up, the little crystal was in there, and it's kind of neat. I would like to put one of those together properly one day. I keep looking around for these things. Another part for like a stormtrooper blaster, but that one's broken. This is a what do you call it? A straining bolt piece. I don't know where that file came from, but it's pretty cool. Lightsaber parts. A whole bunch of other. Got some handles here that I think are for this one. Yeah, so I've got the handles for this Han Solo blaster. They're here. That's good. Yeah, a lot of random stuff. 3PO eyes. The three-piece 3PO eyes. I think I have these on Thingiverse right now. And basically they have all the little parts that go together. And they key up so that they fit really nice. And the back has a funnel-shaped taper, which actually makes it a little easier to see out of. So if your eye's not perfectly centered, and you're looking through here, gives you a little bit better field of view. Not much, but a little bit goes a long way when you're wearing that costume. Yeah, a whole bunch of other random. Here's another one of those foot things. I got a whole crap load of these. Yeah, just a ton of pieces. 3PO. What do you call it? The piston parts. Here's another one of those bolts that I printed. You can see how it threads together here. These are just McMaster car parts that I printed from Fusion 360, and they totally work. And these were printed on the Prusa on an okay setting, not the best setting, but yeah, they totally function, which is really, really cool. Let's see what else. Do I have anything else here? I think I've gone over most of the basics. I just got to give away boxes of this stuff. BB8 parts. We said 3PO eyes. I don't even know what that is. Oh, this is another BB8 piece that I'll never use. More Jedi Temple Challenge stuff. There are a lot of little like greebles. This is another BB8 little eye thing. A lot of little greebles that I will never use ever. This is a little thing that goes to that dual sprayer I was showing earlier, and the hose runs through there and it supports it for some reason. I can't remember why I made those, but pretty cool. This is a part of the 83 droid. It was supposed to go on the forearm that I decided I did not like once I made it. It just didn't look good when I saw it in person. It looked good in the computer, didn't look great in person, so I decided to ditch it. The back of a stormtrooper gun, I'll never use that. Another BB8 part I'll never use. Yeah, tons of stuff that I will never ever use. So anyway, if there's any of the things in there that you're interested in me talking about at any other length, let me know and I'll go over them. I figured it'd be fun just to like look through all my failed prints, random parts I don't use, mishaps, like stuff that I just don't, I don't know, I won't use for one reason or another. I make a lot of mistakes when I print things, and I think typically people don't see how many failures happen in the process. They'll, you know, I'll post up online and they think it's like magic, but there's I have piles and piles of parts that are just not right for one reason or another, and it's just back to the drawing board. I see a lot of people get frustrated and give up, and they're just like, I'm not going to do it, I can't get this part, I messed up. If you see how many of these stupid things that are like slightly different sizes, different, and I print them over and over and then have to adjust it. I mean, the switches that I was talking about, this part here, this little switch, I must have made 20 versions of this before I got one that worked correctly. And the little insert here has magnets in it that interact. It was so difficult to get those things to work every time, and you just got to do it over and over sometimes. So, you know, if you're having trouble getting something finalized, don't give up. Look, you know, I think all of us that make things mess stuff up. So I know people see stuff online and think that it's easier than it is, but you know, just don't get discouraged, and you might end up with a big bag of crap like I've got here. So anyway, hopefully that was somewhat entertaining. Again, let me know if there's anything you wanted me to highlight here, and I'll do a specific video on said thing. But I'm gonna get out of here and go be productive. Thanks for stopping by. I will see you kids soon. Later!